Hello everyone. So in this video I'm going to talk about let, var and const. So there are three ways of naming a variable in JavaScript. The first, let us talk about var, and var, as we've shown before, is very common. So first of all, before understanding any of these, you need to understand what is a scope. Now later or in many other videos, scope is not as easy topic as it seems, but right now we are not going to discuss in details about scope. So what I'm going to say is, what is scope is the accessibility of the current context of code and in which part, and its accessibility of current variables of JavaScript. Okay, so the context of the code and the accessibility of it, these two things you need to consider. So let's get onto the code. First, let us talk about let, redeclaring the variable before talking about scope. Okay, so redeclaring the variable. So by redeclaring the variable, we mean that declaring the variable again. So in var, what we can do is var a equals to 5 and var a equals to 7. So if we console log this a and go to the terminal and write node script.js. Now this, okay, so as JavaScript became greater, or as JavaScript became more and more popular, there was a problem, and perhaps it has been solved today. That is the problem with using var. Now what is the exact problem? The number one problem is, that is, you can redeclare a variable. That is declaring a variable with the same name over and over again. While some people can say it's a flexibility, but in reality it's a very big problem. Okay, so let me just say, like, if you write var a equals to 5, and then again if you write var a equals to 7, and you can you can always keep naming the variable a, and so at one point of time, perhaps what will happen is, here you will just console log and get the latest variable. So while you're practicing here, that is not a problem. But when your code is in production, the biggest problem you might face, and I believe you surely will face, is that suppose you want to change the value of 5. Okay, but since you have taken the same variable over and over again, then you might see that you want to do something and it's being something else is happening which you don't want. Now you can say that perhaps a guy will not name, yes, he might not name the variable the same over and over again, but if he even names, there is no, JavaScript will not say you have made an error. Okay, and as I said, this works in global scope and as well as in local scope. Okay, so that is, as I said, this is a global scope. Okay, so even if it's true, if you write it inside a block of code, and if we again write var a equals to 11, and if we try to access the value outside of the variable, so this is a very bad practice, and node script.js. So these are the reasons for which people keep var. There was a lot of problems with var, and it has been eliminated to certain extent with let and const, and I believe you should not use var, but the concepts are very important, and it's pointing to the same variable. Yes, so this is the same variable everywhere, the value is changing and it's providing me the latest output. So in your application, by mistake, even if you name the variable with the same name twice, JavaScript with var, JavaScript will not throw you an error. So these are one of the main reasons for avoiding var, and it can be easy, but it gets into a problem when you're working in real life. So as of ES6, let was introduced to declare a variable. The let keyword, in let keyword you can't do this. So let us just copy and paste this. So okay, sorry, mistake. So in let keyword, if you just copy and paste this and instead of var write let, sorry, not let, it's let. Okay, so it will be node script.js, and let us comment this out. Okay, so now if you type and if you see, it says identifier A has already been declared, which means you can't redeclare with let, you can't redeclare a variable, but you can however change the value of the variable. So let us see how we can change the value of the variable. If you write like a equals to 7 like this, okay, let's copy paste this and let a equals to 5 and a equals to 7, sorry, okay, so and if you console log a, node script.js, and if you run our script, we see it's 7. So from now it's very clear that you can change the value of the variable with let, but you can't redeclare the value. Now comes scope. So let us now even comment this. Now I am putting code comment on all of these so that you can understand very clearly. So what is the way of commenting a code? That is, you can do like this, and with VS Code you can just write control and backslash. Okay, so this is way of commenting, code commenting. Press control and press backslash. Okay, that's as easy as this. And now let us talk about scope. So something if we declare like this, okay, let us first start with var. In var, global scope equals to global. Okay, now this, while something is inside curly braces, okay, in future you will learn about conditions. While something, this is a local scope. Okay, okay, so here what we can do is we can declare it again, and let us write something like local scope. Okay, var local scope equals to local. Okay, so you can access this local scope using var outside in global scope too. So if we just now console log both, I don't know why it's not giving me suggestions, and also console log local scope. So now sorry, node. Okay, so now we can see that despite declaring this inside a local scope, we can also get the value of the variable outside of the scope. So that's a bit weird, but for this there has been introduction of let. So let's see how let works. So instead now let us put let here, and let us also put let here. Now if we write node script.js, yeah, see, local scope is not defined. So in other programming languages you can't access the variable defined in local scope outside of it. However, you can access the global scope from anywhere. So if you write like console log we can access global scope inside of a local scope. So if we do this and write node script.js, and yeah, so you see, okay, now let us comment this out. Okay, so here you see, though it has given me an error while we are console when we want to print local scope on the console, but in case of global scope, when we are trying to access the global scope within the local scope, you can still do it. You can access global scope anywhere, but you can the local scope means the scope within the curly brace. So the scope within this curly brace or within this condition. You'll learn about conditions in the coming chapters. So this is how easily you can access global scope. And if I also want, if I can do something like this, like, okay, global scope equals to updated. So we can change variable inside of local scope, that is the global variable inside of the local scope. So now if we run this, okay, so we can see updated global scope, and also in both times it's printing me updated global scope. So I guess you're very much clear with this. Now let us just copy and paste this, and instead let us comment all of these out. Control and backslash, if you type them together, you can comment all of your code out. So I missed the part commenting the code, but I believe this should be enough. Now in global scope, let us write now const. Const means constant, that is the value can't be changed. So let us try const. Okay, first of all, before even going through the let us work on the global scope. Okay, so if you write something like global scope equals to updated global, in this case if I run node script.js, okay, now we see that you can't do this. You can't even change the value of the variable, forgetting declaring the variable again. So with const, literally you can't do anything. Okay, so const is global new, and if we console log, you'll get the same error. Okay, yes, global scope has already been declared. So now, and inside of the local scope, if you comment these out, okay, if you write const, and let us not, okay, so now if you type node script.js, and now you look what happens. Yeah, everything here is an error. Okay, identifier global scope has already been declared, means you can't change the global scope. Okay, so that's very much it. Yes, I mean, if you want, you can print the local scope while you're using const. Within local scope you can still print the local scope, but on a global, but you can't change the value of the scope, value of the variable, or you can't even redeclare the variable in constant. So I guess you're very much clear. Now we will go through this. So with let, you can't redeclare a variable, but you can change the value of the variable. Let value declared. Okay, inside of the local scope, it can't be accessed outside of the local scope. So while we have declared let is when it's declared inside of the local scope, it can't be accessed out in the global scope. and you can change the value of so what we can do is we can change the value of the global scope, the variable in global scope, inside of the local scope using the let keyword. So in constant we can't redefine or change the value of the variable whether inside global scope or inside the local scope, and with var you can do anything. So the short rule of thumb is the use const most of the times. So I guess you're clear with the global and local scope. If you're not clear, go through this video again, go to the internet, learn through resources about the global and the local scope. So right now this video needs to end here, and I hope you guys can very much now understand the difference between let, var and const and the use of them in both global and local scope. So thank you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you don't even unlike the video, and please provide constructive criticisms on why you didn't like the video. Thanks.